On this episode of our podcast series, we're going to talk about how to select the right offense for your team. Now, there's a couple different things you have to consider when you're trying to figure out what offense you want to run. I'll share my screen because I got a bunch of stuff up here to show you. Alright, a couple things you got to take into consideration when you're trying to figure out what offense you want to run. I think the first thing that's important is selecting a scheme that you can teach. Schemes over formations. The I formation that's just a formation. The wing T is just a formation. You have to figure out what schemes you want to run with your kids. Meaning, do you want to run gap schemes? Would your teams be better off with zone schemes? For me, I would recommend running gap schemes regardless how big or small your offensive line is, because it'll allow you to use blocking angles, which makes it easier. Zone schemes are great too because they're simple. Right, you could build a whole offense around the inside zone or outside zone, and you work a lot of double teams and then you combo off. So it'll allow you to utilize some more athletic linemen, and it'll allow you to really just get double teams at the point of attack. And again, it does keep things simple. But for me, whether I'm teaching a first-year team that's 8U or a veteran 14U team, I'm going to run gap schemes. That's just my opinion because I feel like I could coach it better than I can zone. When I say gap schemes, like power, counter, plays like that. Basically, you're just blocking down. So I think you have to select a scheme that you're comfortable teaching. You have to, if you want to run gap schemes, say you want to run power, counter, sweep, and trap, build around those 4 or 5 run schemes, you have to be able to communicate that to your players. All right. Like I said, the one disadvantage is that when you're running zone schemes, you kind of just have 1 or 2 blocking schemes and you're good. You could just build off that, add some tags and things like that. So gap schemes, you do have to teach a couple different rules. Like the blocking rules on power are a little bit different than they are on counter or on trap. Okay, so I think it's important that you select a scheme that you'll be able to teach, and then a scheme that you're able to teach your coaches, and then you guys can communicate it to your players. But again, schemes are more important than formations. Like you could run the I formation and still zone block. You could run the I formation and still run power and counter. Run different gap schemes. So formation doesn't matter as much as being able to communicate scheme and teaching your kids how to block that run scheme so they could do it effectively and confidently. All right, so with that said, figure out your schemes, and then it's about selecting the formations that fit your team skill set. If you have a lot of skilled players, maybe not as many linemen or no tight end type kid, you could really just spread the field and still run inside. When I say spread the field, that doesn't mean you're just passing the ball every play. That means you're spreading the field, spread the defense out, and run an inside or even outside. So if you got a lot more skilled players and you want to get them on the field and utilize them in different ways, I'd recommend going spread. If you got a lot of big linemen and not an abundance of great backs, or not a lot of good running backs or skilled position players, going things like double tight end with the I formation. Well, I formation is good. Going direct snap, beast formation, right, to your best player. Direct snap to your best player and just go, okay, out of the beast formation, which is the direct snap formation. So, you do have to fit your formations around your team skill set. Now, however, I'd recommend installing a balanced formation, a spread formation, and an unbalanced formation. Doesn't matter my team skill set. Even if you don't have a bunch of kids that can line up wide and catch, you spread the field, teams will still respect it. So I feel like you can't just be a double tight end compressed offense. You can't just be a spread team. I think if you want to truly stress the defense, you be multiple with your formation. So again, it comes down to schemes versus formations, right? So I think you want to run the same. I think you should run the same 4 or 5 run schemes out of different formations, because it's easier to add formations than it is to add run schemes. So I'd recommend, if you do have, like I said, if you have a bunch of skilled kids, spread the field, make the defense defend all of them, defend the entire width of the field. If you really don't have that, maybe you'd be based more into like a double tight end, more of a compressed look, where you're utilizing more linemen, utilizing 2 tight ends. All right, and then I would recommend going unbalanced formation. Whether you have an abundance of skilled players or not, going unbalanced is great if you have weak offensive line, because it creates an extra gap for the defense. So you'll create an extra gap and you'll probably outnumber them. So you could do different things with the blocking schemes and things like that. So, pick the scheme that you're able to communicate to your kids is the most important thing. Obviously, you want, if you're athletic, you might want to run zone with your linemen. If you're not very dominant, maybe you run gap schemes where you could utilize down blocking. Again, gap schemes are great because think about it, if you're down blocking and kicking out on every play, the defensive lineman's head's going to be looking at the ball. So when the offensive lineman that's lined up outside of him down blocks him, he's not even going to see him coming. And you just kind of play through that near hip of the defender rather than trying to block him straight up and drive him down the field, which doesn't happen. But select formations that fit your team skill set. Go balanced formation, go an unbalanced formation, and spread the field. Definitely go unbalanced because teams typically don't shift to it. And that creates an extra gap, and it'll create some natural running lanes inside. All right, and then this goes back to scheme again. Teaching coaches how to communicate the scheme to their players. Like if you're the offensive coordinator, you're the head coach, say, okay, we're running this. I think this fits my team skill set. You have to get all your coaches on board. Your lineman coach need to be able to communicate the blocking rules. You need to select the drills where you're practicing these plays. All right, you need to practice, if you're going to do zone, you need to practice your zone steps. You need to practice double teaming and comboing off in your individual sessions and drills when you break up into your position groups. So, it's very important that all your coaches are on the same page and they're able to communicate the plays just as good as you. So, it's about educating not just your players, but getting all your coaches educated before the season starts. So whatever you decide to pick offensively, there's a lot of great ways to run the football. There's a lot of great ways to attack defenses. There's millions of ways. There's a lot of cool ways to beat the defense. But whatever you decide to do, make sure all your coaches are all you're all going in the same direction. You have your drills planned out, and they could communicate it to their kids, to their position groups.